Is it written?
Well, to be clear, I wasn't at the briefing, so I can't tell you there was actually a briefing for this particular incident. I'm saying through my experiences on the department, my 29 years, whenever we have an event occurring, if their personnel on any information they have, if they know the event is going to happen, so that we make sure that everyone understands that the event is occurring and what was going to happen during that event.
But is there a guidance? I mean, here are the talking points that we need to be able to cover to remind the deputies that we have to keep an eye on.
I would say that if you're looking for a written policy, I don't believe there's such a policy. I would tell you that if from my training, if I was the watchman and I knew there was going to be a memorial, and I knew that it had revolved around where it was in a deputy-involved shooting, I would brief all my personnel to be extra sensitive to that, to make sure that they didn't interfere and that they gave the family room to grieve so that we wouldn't cause any conflicts. It would be our intention to let them do what they need to do as long as they're not disturbing anyone else in the neighborhood and they're not violating any laws, then they have the right to do that.
Well, those are the good talking points and guidance that may be highly disseminated until an actual policy or whatever internal guidelines are developed. And I think that's important because I think what you're saying are the kinds of things that you would do, but is it across the board?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but you're asking me to answer something I wasn't there, so I'm just trying to give you an example that all of us are basically trained in the same way. That's what I would expect as the supervisor for them to do. I can't tell you that's what they did, and I understand your point on policy. We can look into the fact that maybe we need to have a policy for that. I understand your point.
Thank you.
Okay, good, because now you see this sensitivity around this. Moving forward, it would be great to know if you're kind of incorporating this kind of sensitivity into when a local station hears about a memorial. That would be good to, if moving forward, if that is happening, because it is sensitive to the community, I would imagine it should be sensitive to the local stations. So if we could hear back on that, if that is moving forward, if you can find out if there is more sensitivity being brought to bear. Because I think that is what the community is requesting and expecting.
Okay.
Okay, okay, so now we'll, any other questions, comments? We'll turn to the public comment on this agenda item.
Michelle Infante, followed by Audrey George, followed by Jacob Riesberg.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year. Glad to see everyone here. It's absolutely appalling to sit here and listen to this. Department, you trample all over these families' rights. You come in and you interfere when they're having private family gatherings, when you've murdered someone. You amaze me that you come up here and you talk about not worrying about the past. Well, your past is their present. And the present is their future. You continue to follow your own rules and make up your own rules and your own guidelines. You sit here and you say what you would do, but what about the rest of the people? Just like one of the commissioners was saying, you don't have any particular guidelines for people to follow. You just make up shit as you go along and then expect people to believe it. And these families aren't going to believe their crap.
Okay, please hold the clapping down, thank you. So Michelle can speak.
Makes me nauseous to sit here month after month for the last 3 years to continue to hear you guys say that you're going to turn over paperwork and requests from the OIG, from the commission, probably from the BOS, and all you do is give BS. That's what you do. You have a lot of nerve coming up here with no answers. I would be embarrassed if I were you. You continue to come up here and say, we'll get it to you next month. Well, I can assure you, I've been coming up here for 3 years, and we haven't seen anything from you, except for a lack of accountability and absolutely no transparency in every agenda item that you guys talk about. The thing that it boils down to is exactly that, transparency and accountability, and they have none of it. And I hope that when you get subpoena power, that you use it to the fullest extent and run with it and request everything that you can, including things that you can't even think about now. Just make up some stuff and order it.
Audrey
Next speaker,
George,
please.
followed by Jacob Riesberg, followed by Jacqueline Ventures.
May I just ask for the noise and the copy just to stay quiet so we can hear the speakers.
I'm going to report to you about ongoing harassment by LA Sheriff's Department that victimizes families who have already been impacted by use of force by law enforcement in this country that killed their loved ones, in this county, I'm sorry. I believe there's a good chance you aren't aware of this particular abuse of county resources. Please use your platform to tell LASD to cease and desist from continuing this harassment. BLM has organized a coalition of community activists who protest the district attorney in Los Angeles, who has not taken action to hold law enforcement accountable for the over 500 fatal use of force incidents that have occurred while she has been the DA. For well over 2 years, an average of 25 to 30 people have rallied in front of the Hall of Justice every single week. And each protest has been attended by one or more families of Black and brown people who have been killed by sheriffs. We attend this always peaceful protest to remind the DA she isn't doing her job. And so we can, and to provide loving support so these families don't feel alone in their grief and anger. For over 2.5 years, or for almost 2.5 years, the sheriffs have pushed us farther and farther away from the public entrance to the Hall of Justice, a public building resourced by our tax dollars, using metal barriers they first brought out after the initial first 1 or 2 weeks. Outside the entrance, there's a large public courtyard spanning about 90 feet from the stairs to the door. Saying that it's not a public space, the deputies have most recently pushed us all the way to the top of the stairs with those barriers, even blocking the only ADA compliant entrance to that area via the ramp from the street to the courtyard. So even people with strollers and disabilities cannot come. Every single week there are from 6 to 12 armed deputies who harass.
Your time is up. Thank you so much.
Jacob Riesberg, followed by Jacqueline Ventures, followed by Cynthia Anderson-Barker.
Good morning. Just before I begin, just as a point of order, I thought we covered this 60 days ago at the last COC meeting, but on this topic specifically, if we could move family members' comments who want to respond to the very top, I think it's crucial that we hear from affected family members first. So I would like to give my comment, but I don't know if the commission can shift that order now.
If there are any
We
family
get
members
the, we get the
that want to
cards.
speak,
We get the cards as people come up. So it's, we're not putting anything in any specific order. But if you want to rearrange, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you for making that change. I'm the grandmother of Paul Rea, who was shot in a cowardly and criminal act. Since that time, I have personally witnessed 3 different forms of harassment by the Sheriff Department. I'm not going to go into detail. I reported this before. I haven't filed a formal report for reasons that I can't explain. Having witnessed just 3, even though I live in a county outside of this area, is pretty deplorable. And I have a question that I don't expect you to answer, but I hope you think about it. What policy changes has the Sheriff Department done since they've been aware that families have been harassed? Has there been any policy change? I'd also like to move on and say the Sheriff Department is here because he should be here. He's part of the team. But there's some really serious issues with them being here, because what we hear and what we witness is an unprepared representative of the LA County Sheriff Department. The agenda clearly identifies the topics. Why are policy not brought here to the table? This is not a surprise. The Sheriff Department should not be surprised what the topic is. for the sheriff department to have actually said, I have seen it, but I don't have it, is just not good enough, especially at a meeting which is addressing the issues of accountability. We all are aware that the FBI is investigating the sheriff department for gang activity. I actually want to take this a step further, and if you're not successful in your powers, why is the California Justice Department not stepping in? They step in on rogue cities that are not able to perform their duties. This is the largest sheriff department in the nation. They are unable to operate. Let's call Javier Becerra in to oversee this department.
Thank you.
Jaylene Rhea.
It's gonna be 7 months since the East Los Angeles sheriffs took my brother's life, Paul Rhea. And it angers me more and more every time I come to a mic and have to say his name. That's when the realization comes in that he's not here and he should be here. Going back to Huntsman, the Hilda Solis office contacted my mom for a meeting to plant a tree in honor of my brother. With that, they made it sound so good that we could get a tree for him. Basically, what they did was make it an ultimatum. If they were to plant the tree, we could never go to my brother's memorial spot again, which I found really disturbing, because I know it's not the office. I know it's the sheriffs that don't want us there. It doesn't have nothing to do with the neighbors. It doesn't have nothing to do with anybody, but them not wanting us there. I see memorials all over East LA. I see candles that's been there for over 5-10 years, and they have not been removed. Why is my brother's gonna be removed? Because it's a deputy-involved shooting? They want it to be shut up? I'm sorry, but it's not, and it's disgusting. And I live in East LA, and the officers are horrible. They look at you like you're a piece of shit. And I'm just gonna tell you this. I'm sorry to say this, but take his ass out of here. I could do the same job that he's doing. I could sit down and promise all these lies. I could sit down and say, I'm gonna bring it. I'm tired of hearing this bullshit. I'm tired of it. It's not right. It's not right for my sister to hear this. My sister's only 14 years old. We're coming here for answers. We don't wanna, you think we wanna be here? Why would we wanna be here? Why? We're here to fight for justice, not only for my brother, but for everybody else. And honestly, I would just say, take him out. I could sit in that chair and do the same damn thing he's doing.
Is there any other family members that wish to speak? Okay, so we're gonna move on just in order.
Oh, there's one more.
Jacqueline Venters. I want to thank God that my son lived after being shot 5 times in the back. Mr. Huntsman, you're part of this. In 2018, it was a podcast from KPCC that got over 1 million downloads in regards to my son's shooting. KPCC/repeat if you want to pull it up. McDonald was part of it, and he said that he was going to investigate into the unarmed shooting of my son, which I know that they didn't, because July, I got a letter stating back that it was founded any wrongdoing. They don't know I have the document that I had to pay $350 for because they removed every piece of paper that my son had. When I went down to the court in Norwalk and paid for his documents, in there was from the sheriff department, where he was excluded from this gun that Deputy Gonzalo turned in. No fingerprint, no DNA. The gun didn't work, didn't have any bullets in it. This deputy turned this gun in 2 days after the arrest. So, Mr. Huntsman, your office resubmitted the document because in 2 months, the sheriff department sent something back stating that it was unbounded. Now that it's been resubmitted, it's going on 4 months. We haven't heard anything from the Sheriff Department, Mr. Groves, Mr. Burson. I would like maybe, I don't know what department you guys are at, but I would like you guys to look into this also too, because this deputy falsified documents, and it's been over 8 years. My son's been in prison for this gun that he planted on him. If they take this gun off, my son could come home. February to September, they allowed him cancer to grow in his stomach, and that's unacceptable. It was a form of retaliation.
Thank you.
Jacob Riesberg, followed by Jacqueline Ventures, followed by Sarah Clifton.
Good morning, and thank you for making that change. My name is Jakob Riesberg. It's spelled like Jacob, but it's the German pronunciation. I'm an attorney at the ACLU of Southern California. We agree completely that the Inspector General needs to have greater investigatory powers, as evidenced by both of his presentations this morning. We also support embedding this issue inside the Family Assistance Program, especially since this can't just be something that gets on the agenda on certain COC meetings. This needs to be a constant thing that the COC and particular committees are monitoring. We also support the creation of a written policy, but to be completely clear, this written policy in the department on this issue, it's not about memorial sites. It's not about gatherings. It's about the treatment and respect of family members of people who the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department have killed, period. That's what the policy needs to be, and it needs to be in writing. We also think no matter what the mechanism is for investigating these incidences and the broader pattern of harassment is going forward, it's not acceptable, whatever that mechanism is, to force families to file complaints with the LA County Sheriff's Department as part of that mechanism. This isn't a case of isolated incidents or of sort of run-of-the-mill poor treatment during traffic stops. This is about families who have suffered the trauma of losing a loved one to LASD, and the nature of their complaint is that the department is permitting or encouraging retaliation against them. So in that context, it simply cannot be that we force these families to complain to that very department as part of the investigation. I see I'm almost out of time, so I guess I'll just end there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacqueline Ventures, followed by Sarah Clifton, followed by Rev Bunch. Sarah Clifton.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of Jacqueline Ventures. And second off, I want to thank the commission for all the work you've done last year and the year before. But he says he's going to work with us this year, right? Everybody heard him, right? Okay. So I'm going to give you a list of 23 people been shot in 2019. We don't have the names. So you can have that. So next time you come to this meeting, you'll have the names for us, correct? Correct. Wow, where do I start? Avery Cody was a young man, 16 years old, was shot in the back in Compton by the Sheriff Department. That was 07-2009. His family received $500,000, and between two parents, I think they only got $40,000 apiece. So that kind of upset me. So the next person was killed was Jose Trinidad. We protest, we stopped the trains, we protest at the police station, we raised totally hell, and they gave the family $6 million. Okay? Robert Thomas was killed 11/8/10. He was shot so many times, so our autopsy couldn't tell how many wounds he received. After we protest, his family got $8 million. That was 11/10. That's 9 years ago. I'm going to give you this list of the names of the sheriff that we don't have for 2019. That's because Sheriff Villanueva refuses to give us the names. Maybe it's not in the paper. You can't find the names anyway. But we have 1,075 officers' names on our own data. So I'd like to make sure you get this list. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Sarah Clifton, Rev Bunch, followed by Carrie Ungerman.
Good morning, Sarah Clifton from ACLU of SoCal. I'm an attorney there. While I appreciate the OIG's efforts, especially considering all the barriers that have been thrown up by the department, I think that we're giving the Sheriff's Department here way too much credit, and I think the time to be diplomatic is over. To suggest that this is a matter of lack of training or sheriff's deputies not understanding boundaries is simply absurd. They know what they're doing. This is harassment, plain and simple, and it's time that we call a spade and not continue to try to be diplomatic. When you're following family members around, when they're driving their cars, when you're showing up at memorial sites, when you're doing constant drive-bys at their houses, that's harassment, and they don't have knowledge of, or lack of knowledge of what they're doing. I can't remember the last time I walked down the streets of LA and I didn't smell marijuana smoke. But to arrest somebody for smoking a joint immediately after they were standing up to the department's corruption, that's retaliation. That's harassment, plain and simple. That's not just a lack of training or new sheriff's deputies who don't know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, they know it's inappropriate, they know it's unethical, they know it's immoral, but they don't care, and they're gonna keep doing it as long as they're not held accountable. Just like they know they should be handing over documents in compliance with SB 1421, but they're not because they don't care, and they're gonna keep doing it as long as no one is holding them accountable. What they do to these family members is re-traumatizing them when they've already been traumatized, and it's intimidation tactics, and it needs to stop. So I think for the new year and the new decade, you should all make a resolution to have a demand for transparency and accountability against the Sheriff's Department and stop being diplomatic.
Rev Bunch, followed by Carrie Ungerman.
Good morning, Civilian Oversight Commission. My name is Reverend Bunch with Dignity and Power Now. My comments are directed towards, well, first I want to thank the families for coming and showing amazing, courageous strength in these times of extreme trauma. To the Sheriff's Department, I don't think you need policies to act humanely. The policies is the bare minimum. You can interpret policies. But you don't have a problem exaggerating policies that are shooting people. You shot Ryan Twyman 34 times. That's not in a shooting policy. But you exaggerate policies that kill people in our community. And I think it's a shame that me, as not only a reverend, but as a U.S. Army veteran who fought and tried to defend this country, I did not fight to defend people in my country killing my people. Right. And we just got done celebrating the advent of Christmas. But there's another advent coming. And it's the advent of subpoena power. And I hope they subpoena so many documents, it makes you feel like they're subpoenaing the hair out of your nose. I want you all to subpoena so many documents that make you all scared to come out of those crabby little holes that you call sheriff stations. Because there's a new dawn coming. And the power will be shifted from your disgusting hands back to the community. And you better believe it, we're going to subpoena so much shit. We might even subpoena the toilets out of your damn station. We are coming for you. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more Reverend with all the nice, pious, religious language. No more of that crap. There's a new dawn coming. And it's far too late because of the Reyeses and the Twymans, all these different families. We're coming for you. I say.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Ungerman, and it's my first time here. And the difference between this situation and what I experience weekly at the LAPD Oversight Commission is breathtaking. I also want to thank Max for everything he said. It was also shockingly refreshing, all the detail, and this feels like what it can be when there's an oversight commission and dialogue and people standing up and being able to say what happens. I'm also going to finish Audrey George's statement. Every single week there are from 6 to 12 armed deputies who harass the protesters, including children who are always present and the family members of victims. Often we are threatened with arrest, and some who have chopped the names of victims have actually been arrested. We have videos of many incidents of threat and intimidation by deputies who refuse to acknowledge that it's a public taxpayer-funded building. When addressing protesters, they almost always have their hands resting on their holstered guns. Protesters have always peacefully conducted these rallies, chanting messages for the DA and providing a space for the families to tell their stories and grieve. The past 3 weeks, we have been left with no other recourse than to hold our circle of family and activists standing in a dirt patch to the south of the courtyard. This harassment must stop immediately, and you can help make it happen. I also want to say that I go many times and stand with Helen Jones, who's here, for her son, John Horton, and I want to support the other families that are here today.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for your testimonies. Thank you all commissioners for paying attention and listening. Sheriff's Department for listening. We're going to take a 15-minute break and then we'll be back to get to the next agenda item.
Thanks a lot. We didn't get it. Cynthia Anderson Barker, you never called me.